Dear Holocaust survivors, dear Mr. Guter, dear Mr. Candinas, President of the National Council, dear Excellencies and Diplomatic Corps, dear Swiss government officials, dear patrons, dear speakers, and dear guests. As my colleague from Israel just mentioned, Sweden is right now the chair of IHRD. It's a group of 35 countries that together have decided to make sure the Holocaust and its victims are never forgotten. In 1998, a survey in Sweden showed that 12% of young people did not even know the Holocaust had taken place. The Swedish Prime Minister at the time, Göran Persson, was appalled and decided this needed to change. One of the things he did was to take the initiative to create IHRD. He also started information campaigns, established the Institute of Jewish Studies, and created a government agency dedicated to spreading knowledge to the public about the Holocaust. It's a task that governments since have nurtured and protected. A recent survey shows that today only 1% of Swedish teenagers are not aware of the Holocaust. Relating stories creates a collective memory. It enables an entire nation or people to carry with them the lessons of past generations. It creates places of memory within each and every one of us, even though we may not have been there ourselves. The Holocaust has a special place in our collective memory. By keeping this memory alive, it may help prevent future atrocities and genocide, and may also make us more attentive of gradual and systematic dismantling of human rights and democracy, which we know from historical experience precedes such crimes. That's why the Holocaust survivor stories are so important. We must ensure the collective memory of the Holocaust for future generations. I'm so grateful for the work many of you present today do to keep this collective memory alive. We will listen to Herr Werner Guter, whose family fled from Berlin to Sweden in 1935 and thus survived the genocide, and who is here today to tell us about his family story. I can also mention that Mr. Guter's book is to the left when you leave, so you can take a copy. He's brought copies for, maybe not for everyone, but a number of them. We will also listen to Ms. Naomi Weiler, descendant of a Holocaust survivor, and Mr. Urs Bure from the Foundation for Tolerance. The Swedish city of Malmö has historically welcomed Jewish refugees. During the pogroms in the beginning of last century, Jews from Eastern Europe arrived. During the 1930s and 1940s, Jewish refugees fleeing the Nazis settled there. And in the end of the 1960s, Jews who were driven out from Poland by the communists arrived. But today, many Jews are leaving the city because of increasing anti-Semitism. Malmö is a city of diversity with challenges, but Malmö is also characterized for taking these challenges seriously and working against anti-Semitism. Since 2019, the city has a cooperation agreement with the Jewish community to make Jewish culture and identity visible and to strengthen the work against anti-Semitism. Björn Westerström is working in an educational project to strengthen the Jewish minority and counter anti-Semitism. He is here today to tell us more about his work. Welcome.
Good evening, guten Abend, Erev Tov. My name is Björn Westerström and I am Secretary of Pedagogical Development in Malmö with a special assignment to coordinate the school's efforts to combat anti-Semitism and promote Jewish life. I live close to the synagogue in Malmö. I pass it every day. One morning a few years ago, I met a young man who had been my student for 3 years. He stood outside the synagogue with a mobile phone in his hand, talking. He saw me and came to me, waving his hand. After some catching up, I asked him why he was standing there. He mumbled something about being a security guard, and we said goodbye. But then, when I turned around, he grabbed my arm and said, "I'm sorry, Björn, I lied. I am a Jew." I was surprised because as I told you, I had him for 3 years in school. When I asked him why he never told me about being a Jew, he smiled a sad smile. Because if the other would know, I would have lost all my friends. For 3 years, this young man hid an essential part of his identity. He hid it from his classmates, his friends, and his teachers. He was convinced that if this secret had been revealed, he would have been ostracized, perhaps even reviled and threatened. This is why I and my colleagues have focused on the issue of anti-Semitism. We want young Jews to be able to be open with who they are and who they want to be. That they should be allowed to affirm their Jewish identity as much as they want. Jews have been, they are, and will continue to be an important part of Malmö. They are a part of our city's beating heart. In the middle of the 19th century, the first Jews came to Malmö. There were few, craftsmen and traders from Germany, Netherlands and Denmark. When the persecution in Russia and in Eastern Europe worsened at the end of the 19th century, and Russian and Polish Jews fled west, many Jews came to Malmö. The Jewish population in Malmö now became so large that it was possible to form a congregation and employ a kosher butcher, a shohet. After the turn of the century, the congregation was able to employ the first rabbi, Joseph Wallstein, and the beautiful Orthodox synagogue in Moorish style was built. After the war ended in 1945, the white buses and white boats came with refugees from the continent and from the Nazi concentration camps. At this crucial moment, the congregation was there and helped the new arrivals with warmth, food and clothing. Some of the refugees even chose to stay in the city. For more than 100 years, Jewish life has been a part of the city, of daily work, of city politics, culture and business. For a long time, the city even had a Jewish football team, Hakua. Of course, the city has not been spared from anti-Semitism, especially in the 30s and in the 40s. There are many examples of this. But it is in the 21st century that anti-Semitism has become a real threat to Jewish life in Sweden. The Jewish Association in Umeå was forced to shut down its operation in 2018 after Jews were subjected to threats. In Gothenburg, the synagogue has been vandalized several times, and in Malmö, there are few Jews who can wear a kippah openly. In 2019, the mayor of Malmö initiated a collaboration with the Jewish congregation. The agreement includes that the city must do significantly more when it comes to the safety of Jews, and the city must work against anti-Semitism and strengthen Jewish life. One of the measures that was decided was that a special coordinator would be appointed who could initiate this important work in the city schools. The first coordinator was Miriam Kassim, and she laid the foundation for the work that I now continue. I must emphasize one thing. The work that is now being done in Malmö is unique in Sweden. No other city has a coordinator who works solely to promote the Jewish minority and counter anti-Semitism. Our main strategy is built upon how we perceive anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is often understood as hostile fantasies about Jews, fantasies that have nothing in common with the real Jews or Judaism. No Jews are needed to be present for the hatred to be reproduced. Therefore, we have tried to strengthen the knowledge about Jewish life and identify an identity in education. The goal is to make Jewishness become something domestic and familiar. In this way, the ignorance and exoticism that anti-Semitism ideas can fill is reduced. We have also strived for schools to support Jewish youth in their development of Jewish identity, hoping that they will become confident and maybe be open with their Jewishness. have seen the preschool as particularly important in dealing with anti-Semitism. We therefore have educated preschool staff, from principals to pedagogues, and on both anti-Semitism, but perhaps above all on Jewish culture, history, and religion. The work has resulted in a strategy to introduce Jewish life and identity through Jewish fairy tales in preschool groups. A trigger for anti-Semitism is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Teachers in Malmö have said that it is enough to mention the conflict for it to lead to verbal abuse and threats among students. To counteract this problem, we have organized education for school staff, partly about the conflict itself, so that the pedagogues feel safe to talk about it, but also about pedagogical methods to prevent or neutralize conflicts in the classroom. In October this year, we released an extensive educational material for Malmö's teachers. In the process of developing this material, we did thorough research. We enlisted the help of one of Sweden's leading experts, Anders Persson, at Linnaeus University. We contacted Yad Vashem in Jerusalem and the organization KIGA in Berlin, Kreuzberg-Initiative gegen Antisemitismus. We are now working on spreading and implementing this research, which contains both films and text in the schools, and have received a very fine help from Malmö University in this work. We also arranged a study trip to Israel through our collaboration with Yad Vashem, where school leaders and teachers can learn about the conflict, about anti-Semitism, and also about Islamophobia. Conspiracy theories weaken confidence in democracy and lead to distorted understanding of reality. In some cases, even to desperation and violence. Many teachers in Malmö have testified about how students pick up anti-Semitic beliefs about Jewish conspiracies through media such as TikTok and YouTube. To prevent students from getting stuck in conspiracy theories, we have organized education for teachers with Sweden's leading researcher on the subject, the historian Professor Andreas Önnerfors. We are now working with an extensive educational material about conspiracy theories, as the one we made before about anti-Semitism linked to the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. Right from the beginning, it was clear that study trips to Holocaust sites would be an essential part of our work. Together with SKMA, we have carried out trips with most of the city schools. Some schools have even gone 2 or 3 times with the students. On the trip, students learn about Jewish history and culture in Eastern Europe, and about anti-Semitism and its impact on Jewish life, and about the Holocaust. I go along as a guide and teacher on some of these trips, and not long ago, I was in Krakow at the Jewish cemetery with a group of students. It was an incredibly beautiful autumn day with golden maple leaves falling all around us and the old Matseva. The students stood in a circle and talked about what they had experienced during the trip. They visited Jewish historical sites, the Auschwitz Museum and memorial sites. A girl who mostly had been quiet throughout the trip cleared her throat and took a step out into the ring. She shyly looked at us and then told us that she was Jewish. She told us about the fear she experienced in elementary school and the harassment her brother had to endure. But she also explained that during the trip she had become confident and proud over her Jewish heritage, and that she now wanted to tell everyone that she was a Jew. It is my wish that this becomes something obvious, something that does not require courageous decisions. And even though it's a long, long way to get there, I feel that we in Malmö have taken the first steps. Thank you so much.